Most people stock the usual basics like rice and beans, and that's a solid start. But there are other shelf-stable foods that are just as useful, and you almost never hear them discussed in detail online. In this video, we're going through 20 survival foods that experienced preppers quietly rely on because they store well, fit real meals, and make your pantry more resilient. No hype, no fear. Just practical options you can actually use. Number 1. Wheat berries. Wheat berries are whole, intact kernels of wheat, and they're one of the most dependable long storage foods because they're naturally dry and minimally processed. When they're kept cool, dry, and sealed from oxygen and pests, they can stay usable for decades, often around 20 to 30 years. The part you rarely hear online is how flexible they are. You can cook them like a chewy grain, grind them into flour, or sprout a small amount for fresh crunch if you have clean water. The trade-off is time. Whole wheat takes longer to cook than rice or pasta, so it helps to learn a couple of low-fuss methods before you need them, like soaking overnight, or cooking a bigger batch to use over a few days. Storage is simple but strict. Airtight container, no moisture, and no insects. Many people use thick bags inside a sealed bucket for that reason. Rotate by actually eating it in normal meals so you know what it tastes like and how your stomach handles it. Once you've got a forever grain, it makes sense to add a grain that cooks faster. Number 2. White rice. White rice is the steady, predictable calorie base that beginners should understand early. The quiet detail is that white rice stores far longer than brown rice. Brown rice has more natural oils, so it can go rancid in a year or two, while white rice, stored dry and sealed, can last many years and sometimes decades.
Rice is also easy on fuel because it cooks consistently, and you can stretch it in different directions. Plain rice, thick rice porridge, or rice cooked in broth for more flavor. If water is limited, cook it so the liquid is absorbed instead of drained, which keeps calories and minerals in the pot. For deep storage, skip instant and heavily seasoned rice mixes, since added fats and flavoring usually shorten shelf life compared to plain rice. Protect it from moisture and insects, and don't forget that rice on its own is mostly carbs, so pairing it with a protein is where the real value shows up. Number 3. Oat groats and oats. Oats are one of the simplest fast food staples you can store without buying fancy emergency meals. Rolled oats cook quickly, and they can also be cold soaked when you want a no-cook option. The less discussed upgrade is oat groats, the whole form of oats. Groats usually store better because they're less processed, but they take longer to cook, so many people keep both. Groats for deeper storage and rolled oats for everyday use. One thing that trips people up is buying oat mixes that already include nuts, oils, or dried dairy. Those taste great, but don't store as long as plain oats. Oats also solve a practical nutrition problem. They add fiber and make meals feel more filling when your diet is heavy on starch. They work as breakfast, a soup thickener, and a baking ingredient if you grind or blend them into a rough flour. Keep them dry, sealed, and away from strong odors because oats can pick up smells. After grains, a stockpile needs something that brings protein without wasting fuel.
Number 4. Dry pasta. Pasta is one of the best calorie-to-effort foods in a pantry. Plain, dry pasta is low moisture, so it stores well when kept dry and protected from bugs. The detail that gets skipped is that not all pasta is equal for storage. Basic semolina pasta tends to be more stable than egg noodles or specialty pastas that include extra fats. Pasta is flexible too. You can break it into smaller pieces for quick soup, cook it directly in broth, or mix it with canned protein and freeze-dried vegetables to turn a basic carb into a full meal. Fuel matters here, so learn the lid-on, low-simmer approach to avoid boiling hard the whole time, and consider pre-soaking pasta in clean water so it finishes faster when heat is limited. Store pasta in airtight containers if you can, because cardboard boxes are easy targets for pests and humidity. Once you've got grains you recognize, it helps to add a grain product that doesn't need yeast or baking skill to become bread-like. Number 5. Masa harina. Masa harina is nixtamalized corn flour used for tortillas and other staples, and it's underrated in beginner prepping because it seems niche when it's actually straightforward. The big advantage is simplicity. You can make a workable dough with just water and salt, no yeast, no long rise, and no special equipment. That matters when power is out, time is tight, or you're cooking on a small stove. Nixtamalization also makes corn easier to digest and improves how your body can use certain nutrients, which is a real benefit in a limited diet. Masa can become tortillas, thick porridge, dumplings, or a thickener for soups and stews, and it's easy to portion because you only mix what you need. The storage rule is basic. Keep it sealed and dry, and avoid warm, humid places. If it clumps or smells off, that's a sign moisture got in and the quality dropped. Now that the carb base is solid, the next step is protein that cooks fast. Number 6. Lentils. Lentils are one of the most efficient pantry proteins because they cook quickly and don't usually need soaking. Many types cook in 15 to 30 minutes, which is a big deal if you're trying to save fuel. Red lentils break down into a smooth texture that works for thick soups and stews, while green or brown lentils hold their shape better for chunky meals. Lentils also combine well with rice, pasta, or masa-based dishes, which helps you build complete meals from simple parts. For storage, keep them dry and sealed, and understand that best buy dates are more about peak quality than safety when the food has stayed dry. A practical beginner move is to cook lentils with a bit of soup base or spices, because plain lentils can taste flat and people stop eating them. If lentils are your quick protein, you can add another fast-cooking legume that turns into a hearty, filling bowl with almost no effort.
Number 7. Split peas. Split peas are a quiet winner because they naturally thicken into a hearty soup without needing a lot of extra ingredients. They store well, they're inexpensive, and they cook down into a meal that feels substantial. The overlooked detail is how forgiving they are. Even if you don't have meat, you can still get a rich texture just from the peas, water, and seasoning. They also stretch small amounts of canned meat or canned fish into a much larger pot of food, which helps your supplies last. Split peas don't always need soaking, but a rinse helps remove dust, and starting with a little more water prevents scorching as they thicken. Store them sealed and dry, and expect older peas to take a bit longer to soften. If you're building a balanced pantry, you'll want at least one slow and steady protein that's cheap and stores deep, even if it costs more fuel to cook. Number 8. Dried beans. Beans are the backbone of a budget stockpile, but the part people gloss over is the fuel cost, especially as beans age. Very old beans can still be safe, but they may take a long time to soften, which is tough when fuel is limited. A smart approach is variety. Store some faster cooking beans, like black beans, along with slower ones, like large kidney beans, and keep lentils and split peas for days when fuel is tight.
Soaking helps reduce cook time, and if you ever use a pressure cooker, it can cut time dramatically, but you don't have to rely on special gear. Planning your mix is the simple win. Another tip people skip is testing your oldest beans once in a while. If they're turning into rocks, use them sooner for soups or grind them for thickening instead of counting on a quick pot of beans. Beans also give you options beyond a pot. You can mash them into spreads, mix them into rice, or blend some into a rough flour for soups and sauces. Once you have proteins, a pantry still needs quick, low-fuel carbs for days when cooking time has to be minimal.
Number 9. Potato flakes. Instant potato flakes look like comfort food, but they're actually a practical survival carb because they require very little fuel. Add hot water, stir, and you have a filling base that pairs with almost anything. They also work as a thickener for soups and stews, and they can stretch dough in simple breads or flatbreads when flour is limited. The detail to watch is ingredients. Some instant potatoes include added fats, dairy, or flavoring, which can shorten shelf life compared to plain flakes. For storage, keep them sealed tightly because they love absorbing moisture and odors. They can even work as an emergency cold meal with room temperature water if you have to, but the texture is better with hot water and a little fat. If the flakes clump hard or smell stale, don't force it. Rotate your supply and keep the freshest for the longest. After quick carbs, it helps to have a compact protein option that stores dry and hydrates fast. Number 10. Textured protein, TVP. Textured vegetable protein, often called TVP, is defatted soy processed into small granules or chunks. It's lightweight, stores well when kept dry, and turns into a ground meat texture when you add hot water. The reason it doesn't get talked about as much is simple. It's not glamorous, and it needs seasoning to taste good. From a preparedness angle, though, it's efficient protein with minimal storage space. It hydrates quickly, which saves fuel, and it works in chili, pasta sauce, taco-style meals, and soups. The easiest way to make it taste normal is to rehydrate it with broth or soup base instead of plain water, then add spices you already like. Store it airtight, keep it away from humidity, and test it in normal cooking so you know which flavors you'll actually eat. Also, remember the obvious but important point. Soy is a common allergy, so match your storage to the people who will eat it. Protein and carbs cover the basics, but long-term diets fall apart without foods that replace what refrigeration normally provides. Number 11. Powdered milk. Powdered milk is a practical bridge between fresh food habits and shelf-stable cooking. The useful detail is choosing the right kind. Non-fat dry milk generally stores longer than whole milk powder because fat can go rancid over time. Even if the flavor changes a bit as it ages, it still works well for cooking and baking. Pancakes, breads, sauces, mashed potatoes, oatmeal, and homemade mixes. Powdered milk also adds protein and calcium to a pantry that's heavy on grains. Keep it sealed from air and moisture, store it in a cool spot, and rotate it by using it in recipes you already make. If you want the taste closer to fresh for drinking, mixing it and letting it chill helps, but for preparedness, the main value is as an ingredient, not as a glass of milk. If dairy is important for your household, it's worth labeling containers with the open date so the oldest gets used first. After milk, eggs are the next hard-to-store everyday food that people miss when they only buy grains and beans. Number 12. Powdered eggs.
Freeze-dried or powdered eggs fill a real gap because fresh eggs aren't always available, and they don't keep forever without careful handling. The mistake beginners make is buying them and never practicing. Some products work best for baking, while others can be scrambled, and the texture can be different from fresh eggs. Follow the package ratios, use clean water, and cook rehydrated eggs fully, just like you would with fresh ones. Storage-wise, oxygen, heat, and moisture are the enemies, so keep them sealed and cool. They can be pricey, which is exactly why people don't talk about them much. They're not the cheapest calories. Their value is variety and function, binding in baking, extra protein, and a familiar food that can keep morale steady. If you bake, powdered eggs are a quiet shortcut because you can keep a full baking kit shelf-stable. Once you've covered the basics, the next weak point is micronutrients and appetite, and that's where shelf-stable produce matters.
Number 13. Freeze-dried produce.
Plain freeze-dried fruits and vegetables aren't the same thing as expensive just-add-water meal pouches. They're ingredients, and they solve two problems in a survival diet: micronutrients and monotony. When sealed in good packaging and stored cool, many freeze-dried items hold quality for a long time, often measured in years and sometimes decades. You can add onions, peppers, carrots, peas, berries, or spinach to soups, rice, pasta, beans, and sauces without needing a fridge. Some items can be eaten dry as snacks, but most are better rehydrated, so plan around your water supply. The smart beginner move is to buy what you'll actually eat and practice using it, because freeze-dried broccoli doesn't help if nobody likes it. Also, prioritize the ingredients that are hard to keep fresh in normal life, like onions, peppers, and greens, because those are the first to disappear in a disruption. With produce handled, the next step is making basic staples taste like real meals, especially when stress is high. Number 14. Soup base concentrates. In a real disruption, bland food becomes a problem fast, and concentrated soup bases quietly fix that. Bouillon cubes, powdered broth, soup base paste, and miso all turn water into something that tastes like a meal. They also help you salt food consistently when you're cooking large pots of beans, rice, or grains. The part people don't always say is that flavor isn't a luxury. It affects how much you eat, and steady eating supports steady energy. Store soup bases sealed and dry because humidity turns powders into bricks. Watch for common allergens in some bases, and keep an eye on sodium if you're using them heavily. A small amount goes a long way, so these don't take much space, and they make low-cost staples feel complete. If you keep miso paste, remember it changes after opening. Miso powder or packets are easier for long storage.
Flavor helps, but sometimes you need food that's ready right now with no cooking at all. Number 15. Commercially canned proteins. Commercially canned proteins are one of the few true open-and-eat options that don't depend on cooking fuel. This includes canned chicken, turkey, beef, ham, sardines, salmon, tuna, and mackerel. Quality is best within a few years, but many cans stay safe longer if they're stored in a cool, dry place and the can stays in good shape. Don't use anything from a can that's bulging, leaking, badly rusted, or deeply dented on seams. The practical detail is to store variety. Fish brings healthy fats, poultry is mild and easy to mix into rice or pasta, and meat products can add a lot of calories fast. Also pay attention to the packing liquid. Fish in oil gives extra calories you can pour into rice or pasta instead of draining, while fish in water is lighter but still useful. Choose pull-top lids if you can, because a manual can opener is easy to misplace when things get chaotic. Once you have canned protein, pairing it with high-calorie spreads
gives you fast meals with almost no cleanup.
Number 16. Nut butters and nut powders. Nut butters are one of the quickest ways to add calories, fats, and satisfaction to a basic pantry diet, and they don't require cooking. Peanut butter is the common choice, but almond butter, sunflower seed butter, and similar spreads can matter for allergy or preference reasons. The catch is shelf life. Because they contain natural oils, they won't last decades, and heat speeds up rancidity. That's why experienced planners treat nut butters as a rotate-often item. Store them cool and dark, buy sizes you can use before they sit too long, and don't keep a huge amount past the best quality window. Natural separation isn't spoilage, it's normal, but a sharp, rancid smell is your warning sign. Nut powders, like powdered peanut butter, often store longer and take less space, but they still need proper sealing and usually taste best when mixed into oatmeal, sauces, or baked goods. Alongside nut products, you'll want at least one cooking fat that stays stable enough to support real cooking. Number 17. Shelf-stable fats. If you only store grains and beans, you'll feel the missing piece fast: fat. Fats are calorie-dense, they improve taste, and they help you feel full. The tricky part is that many common oils don't store well for the long term. More stable options include ghee, clarified butter, coconut oil, and some shortenings, which generally handle storage better than typical vegetable oils. Even then, they're not forever foods, so rotation is the plan. Keep fats away from heat and light because that speeds up spoilage. If a fat smells like paint, crayons, or stale nuts, it's likely rancid and not worth eating. Using smaller containers can help because opening a big container over and over introduces air and moisture. If you're building a beginner setup, plan fats around how you cook. One stable fat for frying and one for adding calories to finished food. Once fats are covered, sweeteners are the next overlooked category that can keep food usable and appetite steady. Number 18. Sweeteners. Sweeteners do 3 practical jobs: quick energy, better tasting staples, and basic food preservation. Honey can last for a very long time, and crystallization doesn't mean it's bad, it's still usable, and gentle warming can bring it back to liquid. White sugar also stores almost indefinitely if it stays dry, even if it turns into hard lumps. Brown sugar is trickier because it holds more moisture, so for deep storage, plain white sugar is easier. Sweeteners improve oatmeal, breads, simple sauces, and even savory dishes in small amounts. They also help when you're trying to get kids or picky eaters to actually consume enough calories. One safety detail that matters: honey isn't recommended for babies under 12 months. Store sweeteners sealed because insects love them, and don't count on syrup bottles lasting as long as honey or dry sugar. After sweeteners, the most basic food on the list is also one of the most important for cooking from scratch. Number 19. Salt. Salt is a survival food, even though it doesn't feel like one. It's essential for flavor, it supports normal body function, and it's critical if you're cooking from dry staples every day. Salt stores forever if it stays dry, so the main job is keeping it sealed from humidity. Many people keep 2 types: iodized salt for regular use and plain salt for long-term storage and food prep, since iodine levels can drop over very long storage, and plain salt works well for general cooking. Salt also helps you make simple electrolyte drinks when you're sweating a lot, but it's easy to overdo, so treat it as something you measure, not something you dump in. If you store electrolyte powders, check the ingredients. Some are mostly sugar, and some are mostly salt, so use them intentionally. With salt handled, there's one more small space food that adds minerals and makes basic meals feel less repetitive.
Number 20. Seaweed and dried greens. Dried seaweed, like nori sheets or kelp flakes, doesn't show up in most beginner stockpiles, but it packs a lot into a tiny space. It adds minerals, it brings a savory taste to rice and soups, and it can make simple meals feel more complete. Nori is easy and mild. Tear it into broth, crumble it over rice, or use it as a wrap. Kelp is stronger and more concentrated, especially for iodine, so a little goes a long way, and daily heavy use isn't necessary. Because seaweed absorbs moisture easily, keep it sealed tightly, and once it's open, use it before it goes stale. A small, food-safe drying packet in the container can help keep it crisp, as long as nobody mistakes it for food. If you want a similar effect with familiar flavors, dried parsley, dried onion, and dried spinach flakes can also boost bland staples without taking up much room. Keep portions small because the flavor is strong, and double sealing the package helps keep moisture out and keeps the smell from spreading to other foods.